Hey everybody, welcome back from break. My name is Adam Carpenter, and I lead Google Play's Developer Business Growth Initiative.
And I'm Moonlit. I'm a business development manager at Google Play Games.
Over the next hour, you're going to hear a number of talks about how to optimize your game post-launch performance. In this session, we're going to talk about identifying opportunities in your game's data. First, we're going to show you how to structure a nimble product team that's empowered to make data-driven decisions.
Second, from our experiences working with, and for each of us prior to Google at top game developers, what are the top 5 analytics questions to gauge your game's performance?
And last, why a culture of transparency will be critical to your game's success and growth.
Let's dive in. In my years working in the gaming industry, it's clear that to improve your game's performance, we must first understand your players' behavior through data. But the question is, what's the right data to track? Adam, in your experience, what's that one piece of advice you give to a new developer?
Record everything. And I know this gets said a lot, but it's very, very true. Your players' kind of engagement and participation data, it's absolutely priceless. And if it's impossible to recreate, if you're not recording it when the actions are happening, there's no way to get it back. So even if you're a tiny developer and you're unable to leverage many of the third-party analytics solutions that are out there, at least try to record your data into a flat file format. If you have it saved off somewhere, you can always eventually suck it up into a data warehouse, begin to slice and dice it, and understand where your players find value and what opportunities exist to grow your business.
Assuming you're recording everything and making it accessible, but the data cannot interpret itself. To draw the right insights and to create the right action plans based on these insights, you need to have the right people in the right structure. So the next step is to build the right team. In my experience, many developers set up their product management and analyst teams in what I call a classic model. In this team structure, you have the PM sitting in one group and analysts sitting in a completely separate group.
Maybe it's a case of the analyst being part of a central services team, while the PMs, they're embedded within the game team itself. In some other scenarios, both the analysts and the PMs, they're integrated within the game team. But unfortunately, they might have different leaders who have completely different agendas.
Does it sound familiar to anyone?
In this setup, it might feel like there's this huge monolithic wall in between the two groups. PMs, they're not able or willing to play with the data. And the analysts, while they have access to data, they're not empowered to drive any change.
In this team structure, it often feels like PMs will throw a question over the wall, let the analysts work on it for some time, and just wait for the final answer. Then depending on how well-formed the question is or what the request is, the analyst's answer can vary a lot.
Sometimes it's meaningful, other times it's just a data dump. And then in some cases, it takes so long for the analyst to generate an answer that the PMs have completely moved on by the time they get their response.
Set up like this can create a whole lot of problems that are counterproductive to having an agile, collaborative, and responsive team. Too often than we'd like, both parts might end up thinking the worst about their counterparts.
PMs will often wonder why it takes so long, and when they do get an answer, it isn't really what they're looking for. And then analysts, on the other hand, they're often really frustrated by the poorly formed questions they get from PMs. And they're often left wondering if the PMs are just asking questions to waste their time.
On both sides, you have people thinking those on the other side of the wall just don't get the business. Adam, do you have any suggestions?
So if you want a small, nimble team, one that's really empowered to drive meaningful change, business performance, break away from this standard model. Get rid of that wall between your PMs and your analysts. And in fact, I'll go one step further. Get rid of the concept that PMs and analysts need to be separate people. For most of us game devs, we're not trying to make tiny performance improvements to our titles, changes which require a t-test just to know if the results are significant. To use a baseball analogy, we're at bat and we're swinging for singles, doubles, and the occasional home run. Results which, when viewed in the context of an A/B test, are immediate and obvious.
What we're referring to here is hybrid model, where your PM and analyst are the very same person. This role structure can unleash their potential by giving them autonomy, domain expertise, and purpose.
Set your PM analyst hybrids up so that they own a critical vertical in the game, and then empower them. Look to your PMs to write queries, Retrieve the data, slice and dice it to form a complete and full understanding of the problem, as well as a hypothesis about what the solution is. Then have them partner with your engineers, your creative designers, your artists to come up with a solution. And once the solution's been implemented, the new feature, own it. Monitor the results post-launch. Make sure you're iterating and optimizing and constantly trying to improve and identify vectors for change.
In summary, to empower your team members, give them real ownership over the product roadmap and the ability to conduct hypothesis-driven testing. Give them the freedom, the tools, and the resources to let them work on improving your game's performance. Now, suppose you have the right team in place. To unleash their potential, leverage the power of innate curiosity.
Empower your team and encourage them to ask critical questions about what's actually happening in your game.
One of the most frequently asked questions I get from my developers is that we track and see a lot of data. But what questions do we ask to understand if our game is actually performing well? Here's some to get you started. But most importantly, take these as the inspiration for the type of data you ask your team and for your team to ask themselves.
Consider how your new installs are performing. Are they returning the day after their first session? And if they are, how much time are they actually spending playing the game? Likewise, think about how we can better quantify and understand what brings players back to the game each and every day, and when they do return, where are they perceiving value? Additionally, think about drilling deeper and deeper into the metrics and moving away from lagging indicators like revenue and DAU. Instead, try to focus on finding meaningful participation metrics which can serve as leading indicators.
Let's take a look at the top 5 in detail. For those of you who attended our Playtime event or read our Medium article, you may be familiar with the concept that your player's first 10 minutes in your game is an early indicator of their next day retention. We recommend that you plot the following graph. On the x-axis, you have the average number of minutes your players spend in your game on their very first day. Against, on the y-axis, the percentage of players who come back on day 2.
Usually what we would expect to see is that with each successive minute played, a greater percentage of users are likely to return. However, using Google Play's data, we've been able to identify 2 negative patterns in the game that when you look at your own game data, you can identify opportunities for growing and improving your retention. The first pattern, which we call the flats, retention is largely flat for the first 5 to 10 minutes. And in the second pattern, which we've dubbed the gorge, where you can actually see your retention dropping over the first 3 to 5 minutes before it begins to rise. If you see either of these 2 patterns in your own data, it suggests that there's significant opportunities to improve your early retention.
To all the PMs, analysts, and business owners in the audience, plot this graph. And if you see either of these improvement signals, be very curious what's actually causing it. Is it a very large secondary download? Is it your tutorial? Is it a very confusing lobby? Or maybe you're overly aggressive in terms of monetization in the first 5 minutes of gameplay. All these can heavily impact your first-time user experience and thus lower your retention.
After you've gotten your new users to come back over the first few days, think about what's keeping them there in the long term, and whether they're spending more or less time in your game. To see that, you can take a look at the graph on the right-hand side. What it shows is the average amount of time per user in the install cohort who returned on a given day. The x-axis is the number of days since the user's first session, and the y-axis is, again, that average amount of time per active user. It's an important view, as it's going to help you understand the extent to which your new installs are spending greater or lesser amounts of time in your game. In almost all the games that we've looked at, what you see is this very sharp rise from the day 1 minutes to the day 2 minutes. This is driven largely by the low-quality installs that you get in that first day churning out, and the users who come back on the next day being exceptionally engaged.
Past day 10, you may see one of the following 3 patterns: growing, stable, or declining. There's no one right answer to this. Most importantly, take this as a starting point to investigate what's driving user behavior. Think about what the in-game experience is like from their perspective. For example, if the minutes per active install grows significantly over time, is it because of overall low retention where only your most loyal players remain? Or is it because players think they have to spend a lot of time in your game in order to succeed? On the other hand, you might have a very amazing feature that's only available after level 20, 30, or 40.
If average playtime is shrinking, think about what might be causing that. Is it a case of content? Your game just doesn't have enough, and despite the fact that players really want to engage and play, there isn't enough for them to do. Also, think about how your game economy is structured. Is it too tight? Are you squeezing your players? And are you forcing them to pay too early such that they can't spend enough time in the game and they're more likely to churn out? We'd strongly encourage you to go back to your development teams, generate plots like this, and then be curious about what's actually happening in your game, what patterns you're seeing. Because being curious about how your new players are engaging in the game will set you up for success by helping you to understand what gameplay aspects might be helping or hindering your game's performance.
For your broad DAU base, have you thought about what brings them back each and every day? A view we particularly like, segment your DAU based on when your players were last active in your game. For example, take all of today's DAU and group them based on what percentage is from new installs. What percentage was active yesterday? What percentage was active 2 to 4 days ago? So on and so forth.
When viewing a graph like this, what you're trying to do is maximize the percent of DAU who was last active yesterday, because this would mean that a majority of your users are coming back to the game each and every day. Now, it's unlikely you'll ever get to 100% last active yesterday, but that should be all of our stretch goals. And for each segment, besides those who were active the day before, think about what their needs are, where their interests lie. Think about how you can provide better experiences, better incentives to get your players to return each and every day.
It's especially important to focus on a group of users who were last active 2 to 4 days ago, as these are the easiest to convert to daily players. Think about what incentives can you offer to have them come back each and every day. Can you strengthen your return mechanics? Can you personalize the push notification? Or can you leverage your social system to create extremely compelling experiences to bring them back day after day after day?
In addition to segmenting your users by their daily last active play, you can also do the equivalent thing for your revenue and your buyers. The charts we're looking at here show the percent of revenue and the percent of buyers based on when those users last paid in the game. And the way to calculate this, for example, is, let's say it's today. Take all the revenue you earn from today and then segment it, create sections and slices based on when those users previously paid in the game.
Views like this are very valuable to understand when, where, and how your players perceive value in your game. For example, look at this graph and ask, what percentage is your first-time buyers? If you're a relatively new game and you see a high percentage of first-time buyers, that's to be expected. But this number should be trending down over time as you convert your first-time buyers into repeated buyers. So if you're a relatively mature game and you still see a very high first-time buyer percentage, ask yourself, what's incentivizing your user to purchase once but not again?
Likewise, take a look at the percent of your daily buyers in revenue which is coming from users who purchased in the last week, the last month, or the last quarter. And then think about what's driving a specific purchase frequency and how players are perceiving value in your game. Think about what causes them to open up their wallets and pay, and when they do, are they having a good experience? Then see if you have the ability to shift monthly buyers to weekly or quarterly buyers to monthly. If you're able to do this, it'll help stabilize your revenue and make it much more predictable.
Finally, we'd like to encourage you to move away from vanity metrics like DAU and revenue. While these are important business metrics that measure the health of your game, they're just the end results, not the leading indicators.
Instead, try to identify a metric or metrics which can serve as the most meaningful and effective representation of engagement in your game. Finding the right participation metric will let you identify issues in the game before they begin to impact revenue and DAU. As a broad concept, participation measures the percent of your DAU who are engaging in a critical action on a given day.
To give you an example, here are the ideas from 3 popular genres. Match-3 developers use level completion as our participation metric. Players who abandon the level or those who exit the game before finishing the level don't count. Instead, they measure the number of players who played the level all the way till the end, whether they pass or fail. They use this as a participation metric because it measures the player's intent to finish the level and progress in-game. It also has the added bonus of surfacing monetization opportunities when players are out of moves and need power-ups.
In games like slots or bingo, social casino genre, etc., you have some very interesting dynamics in the game economy. The way the game economy works is, whether it's credits or it's coins, generally speaking, players can accumulate a near unlimited amount of resources. So what you actually have is a relatively large percent of DAU come back every day to collect their assets, but they never actually consume or spend any in the game. This has led many slots developers to use the notion that a user who sinks coins playing a slot machine is part of their participation metric. Or some of the even more advanced slots developers, their participation metric is actually the percent of their DAU who goes out of coins playing on a given day.
In mid-core strategy games like War Dragons, player interactions are very important. Pocket Jam, the game developer, tracked the number of daily attacks and participation in the weekly events. During an attack, players are actively engaged in gameplay. Attacks also generate two actions, retaliation and base repairment. Both increase the player's investment in game and resource consumption. The same is true for weekly events.
In all cases, participation is critical as it measures the player's intent, their desire to play. We'd strongly encourage you to explore your own data and figure out what your key participation metric is, as finding it will help you better understand your players and the overall health of your game.
Now, suppose you have the right team structure, and by leveraging their innate curiosity, you're asking all the right questions. But how do you find the right answers? The best answers cannot be discovered in silo, and the best solutions often cover a very different perspectives. To have that diverse perspective, it's important to have the right team culture. So ask this. What is your team culture? Is it open or is it closed? Do you hold information tightly or do you share it widely?
Sharing thoughts, findings, and insights, they're absolutely critical to your game success. And likewise, how you share information is important. Sharing data alone is meaningless. What you actually need to do is share information, which is data in context. For while data by itself can be interesting, information is meaningful and actionable.
So open up your weekly analytics meetings to all the key stakeholders of your business. Use these meetings as a platform to not only discuss past updates, events, and sales, but to also ask probing questions to each other and brainstorm together.
Likewise, encourage your team to make sharing a regular part of their daily work. If they're investigating an issue or trying to improve a feature, encourage them to call a peer over, talk through the trends and patterns, understand what's going on, and ultimately work to understand and come up with effective solutions.
Now, let's summarize. What does it take to identify opportunities through your game's data?
First, if you want to be able to identify opportunities, the most important thing is to ensure that you're recording absolutely everything that's happening in your game.
Second, make sure you set up an agile team who is well equipped to not only interpret the data, but to also take actions based on these insights.
And then encourage your team to be curious about anything and everything. Dig through the data, ask questions, generate insights. Always be curious about what users are valuing in your game and how you can use your understanding of that to improve your business and drive long-term growth.
Finally, encourage that culture of sharing at all levels of your company, one-on-one, intra-team, as well as company-wide.
Thank you guys very much for your time. I hope this was interesting. Now we're going to turn it over to Belinda, who's going to share some updates about monetizing with Google's ad platform.
Good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing today? Great. It's really great to be here at GDC with all of you. I'm really excited to be able to talk to you all about some of the cool things that our teams are working on. So I'm Belinda Langner, and I'm a product manager working on Google's mobile app ads business. My job is to build products for app developers like yourselves to build really great businesses and successful businesses by acquiring high-value users through advertising. And then Vishal is going to come up and tell you a little bit more about how you can earn more for your players. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'll tell you a little bit more about how Google can really help grow your fan base. Cool. So as we've heard from a number of presenters today, we know that there's a tremendous opportunity out there for game developers today. Mobile has really democratized the entire gaming industry and made it more accessible to more people than ever before. In fact, today there are over 2.6 billion gamers in 2017, and that's compared to 100 million in 1995. That's a huge growth curve when you think about it. And it makes product managers like myself and Vishal very excited, obviously. And it should make you all very excited, too. So 80% of mobile game players today play at least once a day. And that includes me. I think, actually, if you look back, I never would have called myself a gamer. I've always really liked playing board games with my brother growing up and things like that. But like when I used to think of gamer, I used to think of like a very different sort of profile. But in fact, I spent a lot of hours playing things like Alpha Bears. In fact, I play that over on the BART ride in today to the city. And I just really enjoy playing these games. And I actually spend quite a bit of time on my commute playing. I spend quite a bit of time when I wake up just kind of, playing to kind of put my mind off of things a little bit, or like, at night, right before I go to bed, just to kind of, relax a little bit before I go to bed. And so as more people play and as more people like myself get interested in games with cute, adorable animals, there are even more ways than ever to build a profitable business around games. And we're here today to talk to you about the business of gaming and how Google Ads can really help you be successful. So let's go ahead and dive in a little bit more. Starting with growth, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the tools that can really help grow a fan base for your games. So, I don't need to be the one to tell you this, because most likely you all know this. Acquiring players for games is highly competitive, and the profile of players playing card games versus hardcore strategy games versus games that have cute, adorable animals in it is quite different. And it's even harder to tell who's actually going to be staying engaged for longer and whether or not they're going to spend within the app. In addition, as the gaming industry grows, the profiles of these people start to change. And so what you think of a traditional gamer and how you categorize these may not actually tell the full story of people who are actually engaging with your game. And that is where we can help. In 2015, we launched Universal App Campaigns, or UAC, as a great way for developers to automatically find and acquire the right users across all of our largest properties. UAC has made marketing better, easier, and simpler for developers such as yourselves to build and grow your businesses. And rather than having to figure out how each of the nuances of our networks work by adding thousands of keywords or individual testing a ton of headlines to see which ones work best, developers now are able to take advantage of Google's machine learning platform to do it all for them. And performance results for developers have been great, no matter if you're a small developer or a large developer, no matter where you are in your game lifecycle. And so let's go ahead and go through a couple of examples. Has anyone heard of the game Power Pop? Bubble Shooter Mania? No? Oh, a couple people. There we go. So Ilion Dynamics is the maker of the hit game Power Pop Bubble Shooter Mania. And Ilion wanted to acquire new players for Power Pop and to really increase the revenue coming from their in-app purchases for new players acquired. And so when they were looking to grow their app installs and really increase out their user base of paying users, they looked at Google and used Universal App Campaigns. And they found that UAC delivered higher KPIs almost across the board. In fact, they saw that the 90-day lifetime value of these users was actually 7.3 times higher, and they actually saw an average revenue per user increase of 5 times compared to their baseline. In addition, the day one retention from these players that they acquired through UAC was actually 15% higher than their organic users. And the beauty of UAC is that it's completely adaptable to any game, to your players, and to your business. And so let's just go through another example. Has anyone heard of Marvel's Contest of Champions here? OK. Yeah, so you can see this is a more popular game, but we can really help you no matter how small your game is or how big your game is. And so Kabam is an industry leader here in massive mobile multiplayer games. Kabam has accumulated millions of downloads, and you can tell, obviously, some of you guys are in this room today, and have received awards such as Apple's Editor's Choice and Google Play's Best Game of the Year. And so Kabam came to us looking to increase their daily active users for the role-playing game Marvel's Contest of Champions, and they also wanted to extend their global reach. They didn't want to just reach one market, but they really wanted to kind of expand beyond just their main market. So they partnered with Google and UAC to find new players, and they included video in their campaigns to really let the strong gameplay that they have speak for itself. And by doing so, they grew their installs 6 times, quarter over quarter, reaching hundreds of thousands of new users. And in addition, their conversion rate actually increased 50% year over year, and UAC helped drive a 70% improvement on their target return on ad spend. So how is UAC exactly doing this? How are we helping developers such as yourselves, developers such as Kabam, and developers such as Ilion? Well, we're using machine learning to make the smartest decision for every single ad that we serve, analyzing hundreds of millions of potential combinations in real time, finding out where people are engaging with your ads, which creatives work the best, which queries are working the best, which users are actually ultimately doing the action that you care about within your game, whether it's purchases, whether it's reaching a certain level, whether it's just simply engaging with your game. Learning about these converting players to find more of them over time. And I'm really proud to say that our investments are working. We've recently passed a really exciting milestone. We've now driven over 10 billion installs to date from our ads. In addition, UAC is actually helping drive over 7 billion in-app events per quarter, like users reaching level 10 or making a certain purchase within your game. And so we're continuing to double down on UAC now, with a lot of new inventions being built into UAC and to make app promotion even more effective. So I'm going to go ahead and dive in some of the cool things that we're going to actually be bringing to UAC. And video is a really key format by which you're able to pique the interest of your users. Because after all, you kind of want to understand how the game works before you download it. There's so many choices out there. How do you know that you're going to like the game? And that's why video ads have been so successful in driving app installs. In addition, we're trying to unlock even more opportunities for us where we can really show how to find users and show users how great your game is. And one of those great areas is Google Play. More than 1 billion people visit Google Play each month from over 190 countries around the world. It's the place where users come to develop apps and games like the ones that you all develop. And beyond just searching for new apps to try, we're seeing that more and more users are browsing the Play Store and trying to find the recommendations that come from the Play Store about which games or which apps that they should download and give a shot. And so, to help users discover more of your apps and really amplify your video ads, we're rolling out a new beta for our video ads. And so now we're offering a new way for you to reach your users with your video ads in Google Play. And these new placements will be available exclusively through UAC to help you reach users with high-impact video ads as they type, they swipe, and scroll through all the different results in search of their next new favorite game, which hopefully is yours, right? And with a world of games available on mobile, it can be hard to know who might fall in love with your game. And it's not just video ads that will really help encourage and find the right users, but we also know that you want to find users who actually will really start to engage and do the actions that you care the most about, like the ones who are likely to beat that first level, get through a tutorial, or make an in-app purchase. And so, we're introducing similar audiences for UAC to help you find people who share similar interests with the best customers that you already have and that you already know about, right when they're interested in games and with apps like yours. So imagine that you have a popular mobile game and you're working on your next new launch release. You actually have a whole list of users of games from your games that you know work really well. And so you can give that list to Google, and we'll actually be able to find more players like those playing your current game. By connecting the information that you give us with more qualified customers, similar audiences can really help unlock more of the information that you know already works well for you and really help you grow your business even more and faster. And this will be available to select advertisers starting later this year, in a couple of months, in May. And we're really excited to see what you all do with this. And so now I'm going to pass it over to Vishal to tell you a little bit more about how you can earn more from the players that hopefully you just acquired from UAC.
Hi, everyone. My name is Vishal Kumar, and I'm a product manager at Google on the mobile apps monetization team. My team's goal is to help developers like yourself maximize the amount of money they make from their apps, and to do this in the most easiest way possible. Today, I'm here to share some of the latest and greatest ideas and innovations that our team is working on. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. I think everybody in this room has a passion for building legendary games. But to build those games, you need the cash flow to sustain it. The hard truth is that not all your players are able or willing to pay for those games. And then even those non-spenders actually need compelling gaming experiences. In the last year, we have seen the explosion in the growth of hybrid models where publishers are using ads and in-app purchases to maximize the monetization of their games. In fact, in the last year alone, mobile gaming apps using hybrid models have seen 50% growth on the Google Play Store. We believe that by supplementing your IAP-focused games with ads, you can actually engage more players and reach out to a larger audience. In fact, almost anyone with a mobile phone. However, one concern that we hear from publishers is that they believe ads might cannibalize IAP purchases. We get that. That's actually why we released the prediction tool in our app development platform, Firebase. So what the predictions lets you do is segment your players based on predicted behaviors into likely spenders and likely non-spenders. That means that you can show ads to a huge majority of your players that are most likely not going to spend inside the game. This is a huge revenue opportunity for publishers today. One of our partners, Rockbite Games, used the prediction tools to actually segment their user base into spenders and non-spenders, and then they used this data to create customized digital store experiences based on the prediction. They drove a 25% increase in revenue using the tool and the differentiated experience. So we believe that ads are a great way to monetize your apps. However, these ads need to be of really high quality. We believe that the best ad experiences actually provide value to users, value to advertisers by delivering engaged users, and much more revenue for the app publisher. For the non-spending audience, it's also really critical to make sure that we do not sacrifice the gameplay experience. Because even if they're not willing to pay with their money, they are likely willing to pay with their time. Rewarded ads offer a non-intrusive opt-in way to allow these large non-spenders to engage with an ad and get something of value in return. Our data shows that when used correctly, these ads can actually increase playtime while ensuring that publishers get paid. As you can see, some of these users actually talk about these ads in their App Store reviews, And actually, we've even seen them complain when we pull these ads from some of the games. Of the top 1,000 AdMob app publishers by revenue, over 40% of them are now using rewarded ads in their games. Another benefit we see is that developers who actually start using rewarded ads in their games actually end up seeing more engaged users because the users actually appreciate the value exchange, which makes the gameplay more engaging and rewarding. Avidly, one of our publishers, who publishes Bingo Party, actually saw a 40% growth in total revenue once they introduced rewarded ads into their games, and 20% longer session lengths due to the increased engagement from rewarded ads. Today, I also wanted to talk to you about some of the new experiences that our team is releasing in rewarded ads. So on the left-hand side, we have something that we call the rewarded playable. This is kind of like a try before you buy sort of ad format. And the other interesting thing is it actually keeps the player inside the gaming experience. So you get the maximum monetization and engagement. On the right side, we have something that we call multiple rewarded ads. In this particular example, not only are you offering the user the choice to see an ad, you're actually offering them a choice of which ad to see. And our data shows that when you actually design the format in this way, users actually end up picking an ad that they have some investment in. They end up being more engaged in the ad, and that results in more conversions. These formats have been designed specifically to make sure that when you do try to monetize your non-spenders, you do not end up sacrificing the in-game experience. Another important piece of monetization is making sure that you're optimizing every opportunity to earn revenue. And normally, this has meant using mediation and working with many different network partners. Mediation is a crucial strategy for our publishers to help them find niche pockets of demand across geo and format. In theory, mediation ensures that you're getting the highest CPM for every impression by making sure that the networks that have historically offered the best performance get called first, and then you proceed down a daisy chain. But what happens when a lower priority network is actually willing to pay more for a particular impression? That's actually where we believe we can come in and help. With the new product that we just announced, which is called Open Bidding, we now take the promise of monetization to the next level. First, we make it easier than ever for you to manage all your different networks. Secondly, we help you get the most value for your ads, because with Open Bidding, all your different partners are going to compete for the inventory simultaneously and in real time. Again, our data shows that when this happens, it drives the performance for the publisher much higher, resulting in much higher monetization. Open Bidding also has some other benefits beyond just increased revenue. Simplified reporting, and also potentially reduced SDKs should help you reduce your operational expenditure. Our team is super excited about continuing to build the tools that help you grow your business, grow your revenue, and grow your audience. Since 2012, the AdMob team has paid out over $3.5 billion to all the different app developers to help them stay focused on their mission of creating legendary games. Now, so here are some of the other sessions that we have. If you're interested in anything that you've heard and you'd like to learn more, please come talk to me or attend one of our sessions this week. I'm now going to hand it off to Dave Geffen, who's going to talk to you about building communities and expanding your reach through YouTube.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dave Geffen. I'm the head of the Gaming and Content and Partnerships team at YouTube. And my team is responsible for the growth of gaming content in the Americas for YouTube. And what we do is work with game developers, publishers, and creators to help them succeed on the platform. One of the most common questions we get is just about how to get started on YouTube. It's a huge platform. I think everyone knows it's worthy of investment. They just don't quite know where to start. So today we're going to talk about some immediate steps you can take to succeed on the platform that anyone, regardless of resources and time, should be able to do. So let's just talk about YouTube by the numbers for a second. We don't need to spend a ton of time on this. I think everyone can universally recognize that YouTube is an absolutely massive platform. But just calling out a couple of things that jump out to me. So Tubular Labs did a study recently where they quantified that more than 325 billion views in 2017 coming from YouTube were marked as gaming. Like really huge and really impressive numbers. In a similar study, Newzoo had over 2 billion people playing games globally, so a massive total addressable market. So the audience is there, the demand is there, and there's clearly people engaging with and watching video content like never before. So what are these things that you can do to get started? Really, these are tips that we would give to developers or publishers of any size. Behind closed doors, in a session like this, there's some really baseline things that you can do to succeed. The first is to educate yourself on the platform. You can't succeed unless you really know what's happening and why. Create your own content. Establish the tone and voice for your game and your IP on YouTube, and let your fans follow suit. Leverage the tools and tech that YouTube invests in. We're really invested in helping people create great content on YouTube and have a lot of unique tools to help that happen. And finally, work with your biggest fans, collaborate, know who your biggest supporters are, and support them. So it goes without saying that it's really important to have a baseline level of proficiency and knowledge when it comes to YouTube. YouTube's been around for 13 years. The YouTube Creator Academy and the YouTube Certified programs are amazing educational resources developed by the YouTube team to help anyone, from the most basic user to the most advanced, succeed on the platform. These educational modules cover things from metadata how-tos, like how to use thumbnails to optimize clicks, all the way up to content rights, copyright claiming, and so forth. You don't need to become an expert overnight, but as you're getting started, if you have a question and you're looking for an answer, this is a really good place to be. And I think one thing that's really important to mention, and one thing that we don't see a lot of at times, is the follow-through and commitment to refreshing your knowledge and understanding how the platform changes. One really easy and quick tip that we offer people is to follow the Creator Academy on YouTube. They often will publish videos and how-tos on some of the biggest issues changing on YouTube. And it's a really great way to casually keep track of what's happening and decide what matters to you. Again, the platform's changing, and what you knew 12 months ago may not be relevant today. So stay up to date in your understanding of what's going on the platform. The most obvious and the biggest one is to create what you view as exemplar content of videos around your game. It gives you the opportunity to set the tone, the voice, the style, and how you want your IP to be perceived. Is it irreverent? Is it comedic? Is it more serious? That's only for you to decide. And if you look at partners like Seriously, who've been so committed to doing this with their Best Fiends franchise, there's no question as to what they want their IP to be. And you see that in every piece of content that they create on the platform. And that's really born out of this idea of consistency. There's no shortcuts to success on YouTube. There's no silver bullet. It's about hard work and consistency. And doing that's going to give you the best chance to succeed. Miniclip is a great example that we point to that consistency just pays off. They created their own great content around Agario. They collaborated with fans. They featured different pieces of content that created just variety on their channel, and their fans responded. They actually achieved more than 1 million subscribers in less than a year, which is a phenomenal and tremendous effort. And how they did that, they leveraged tools. And this is something that everybody should be doing on YouTube. Google is primarily known as an engineering-first culture, and we build great tools. We build great tech to help you succeed. One example, especially for game developers and publishers just getting started on the platform, is using the new Community tab. And what the Community tab allows you to do is bring content that is non-video gaming content into your subscriber feed for your channel to engage with your audience while you're still developing video content for the first time. So imagine yourself engaging with your audience with a poll. What new video content would you like to see? Or a static image releasing a new champion or hero into your game. It takes some of the pressure off of you when you're just getting started, and it's something that we're seeing fans engaging with all of the time. Two other big products that we think are super relevant for mobile developers are cards and end cards. So cards are something that you can include into the middle of a video that lets you track an action. In this case, Rovio is doing a great job using cards to redirect interested users from their Angry Birds 2 trailer to the Google Play Store to measure the effectiveness of their videos and understand how this is performing as an install channel. They can follow that up with things like end cards that allows you to cross-promote and continue getting users engaged with content on your channel that's relevant to them. The tools, the tech is there, just understanding how to use them is really key. Finally, collaborate with your fans. Know who your biggest supporters are, recognize them, and support their content. Supercell is a developer who we've seen do an amazing job working with their biggest supporters and creators to help supplement their content, be part of the narrative and part of the process of their biggest moments for their games, whether it's Clash of Clans and a new Town Hall update or Clash Royale and a new card. Having your fans involved is a great way to ensure authenticity, but a unique tone and voice that only they can bring to your games. And one really obvious one is just support and recognize the fans in your community. It goes a long way. The people who are creating content around games are doing so because they love these games, first and foremost. And recognizing their contribution to the community and what they've done to help your games can go a long, long way. So pulling it all together, think about education as the baseline and foundation for your YouTube experience. The more familiar you are with the inner workings of YouTube, the more likely you are to succeed. Second, create your own content. Take the time to establish what your games and what your IP should be on YouTube. Show your community, show your fans that this is what excellence with your games looks like and represents. Collaborate with fans. Just work with them to bring their passion to the forefront and recognize it on your channel. And finally, leverage the tech and tools that we make that will help you reach more fans, succeed, and ensure a greater level of success on the platform. Thank you very much. And I would, sorry, go ahead. Okay. Now that that's out of the way, I want to welcome up Toshi from Bandai Namco, who's been doing some really interesting work with Google Cloud, and he'd love to share it with you.
Thank you. All right. Hello, everybody. Good evening or afternoon. I can't tell what time it is right now. I'm sorry.
Hi, I'm Keigo, the Dragon Ball app team leader.
And my name is Toshi. I'm also part of the Dragon Ball app produce team, and I'll be doing most of the talking as, fortunately for my job, Keigo can't exactly talk in English. So, I'm sorry. He understands it, though. So, moving on. Just before starting on into the presentation itself, I want to talk a little bit about our company. We, Bandai Namco Entertainment, create video games ranging from console to PC to mobile apps, as you can see on the screen right now. And most of our games actually are based on Japanese IPs. So examples would be Dragon Ball, One Piece, Idolmaster, Sword Art Online, Naruto. I can just keep going on and on and on. But maybe some of you have seen it, some of you have played it. But today, that's not what we're really here to talk about. Today, we're actually here to talk about something new, something both of us, Keigo and I, are really excited to talk about. It's a new PvP game, and actually, we've never released any new information regarding this until now, so you guys are the first to see anything about this game. So, without further ado, I give you Dragon Ball Legends. It's an all-new title of mobile app that will be released in 2018. And as you can see on the screen, the gameplay will be in 3D, heavily action-oriented, and also we're pretty excited to talk about it today. We made sure that the details and everything are all fine-tuned so that it's exactly what the Dragon Ball fans wanted on a mobile app. So one of the biggest features that we have for this game, actually, is the global real-time player versus player on Cloud Network. So let me say that one more time. It's global, it's real-time, and it is actually player versus player. We're not going to muck around with by providing pseudo experiences of player versus player where players fight other player datas. It's not going to be like that. We'll actually have the players be fighting one-on-one, anywhere, anytime. So you know what? To give you a really good idea as to what it'll be like, we're actually going to have a live demonstration between 2 points. And point A being here, Moscone Center, where Keigo will be playing against another team member of ours that is currently in Japan, our Tokyo headquarters, actually. So I just copy and pasted the Google map, actually. But as you can see, there's 5,100 miles apart. Oh, yeah, that's Ayaka. That's one of our team members. And so she's currently in Tokyo right now. The right screen is her mobile app screen. Left screen is Keigo's. And I would appreciate it if the audio was played in the background a little bit louder. Yes, thank you. OK, so the game itself is one-on-one, but each player can bring up to 3 playable characters. The objective of the game is to defeat the opponent's 3 characters before the opponent. All right, and they're both ready. So, thanks to Google's cloud networking, we managed to create a really stable playing field where users don't really need to worry about internet connection, latency, or whatnot. All they need to worry about is the opponent that's going to be in front of them on the screen. All right, it seems like the game connected, and it's still black. Oh, there we go. Thank God. So, the game started right now. Left screen is Keigo. He will probably show off some of the cool cutscenes that each character has, but it's heavily action-oriented, but in actuality, the controls are quite simple. We made sure that it's intuitive, and we made sure that everybody who wants an action game on Dragon Ball can play other players without having to worry about getting their butt handed to them. So, as you can see, Ayaka just activated her special skill. The 4 cards that can be seen on the bottom of the screen, those are universal cards that each player has. And whenever you tap them, the character will automatically do an action oriented to that specific card. And each character will have something different. For example, you tap the red card, you can do a melee attack. You tap the yellow card, you can do a long-ranged, and the blue one is a special attack. And also, by tapping them consecutively, the character will automatically create combos. So, just like right now, actually. It's a special cutscene right now, and it looks really complex when you first see it, honestly. But, oh my God. Yeah, see, she had no choice. He's her boss. All right, back to the presentation, please. All right, thank you. So, as you can see, the game As you can see, the game itself runs actually fairly smoothly, even though the connection was done over the ocean. Players who are outside the country that you're living in can obviously definitely fight against you with no worries about latency, any problems and network lag or whatsoever, thanks to the Google Cloud Platform. Honestly, we could not have realized this entire project without this service. And also, as for the second point as to why we use GCP, this entire title, this is going to be a flagship title of sorts for us. It's going to be on a whole new level of just entire bigness. So we know that there's going to be an immense amount of traffic coming in. And the bigger the traffic is, we need to make sure that the infrastructure can handle it. More database, more sharding and whatnot. And the bigger the system gets, the more complex it gets. and inevitably leading to higher just human error and higher chance of human error happening and higher cost for taking care of it. And when we have a title like this, where we have hundreds of thousands of users constantly playing against each other, we want to make sure that they always have the right experience that we prepared for them. So in order to do that, we utilize the cloud spanner to create a more simpler architecture so that we don't really need to worry too much about human error happening or other costs that might happen. So another thing that we use the GCP for is stack driver logging and BigQuery. Like you might have heard a couple minutes ago, we want to record literally everything. We want to make sure that we can see what the users are doing and the key performance indicators are used properly so that we can create a constant content update where users have something new to do, users have something to come back to maybe every other day, every day, hopefully every day. But we want to create a content that's constantly evolving. So this is an architecture diagram that we're going to be using for this project. Who here can read this? Hands up. Oh, yeah, I can't. But I know what Keigo told me to talk about. So this is basically just an idea of the architecture diagram where how the user connects to the administrator. But in the end, we are going to be providing this service as one big server. We're not going to be separating by regions or areas like you might see in certain large MMORPGs, because that would then kind of lose the point of having a global PvP system to begin with. We want to make sure that every fighter can fight another fighter that's on the other side of the world anytime they want, so that they can just gloat and literally say that they are the best. So, to reiterate, the GCP was essential in this project. We could not have done this player versus player connection where you don't really need to worry about the gameplay being affected by network lags and such, even if you're connecting to a player that's on the other side of the world. And also, we wanted to make sure that we create a constant content update with actual quality and provide something the users wanted, or maybe didn't even know they wanted, but were satisfied with. So we need to make sure that we record everything and provide for proper large-scale service. And of course, we just want to make sure that every fighter just deserves a solid connection. They only need to focus on the enemy in front of them. They don't need to worry about the extra connection issues or technical difficulties. They just need to figure out how hard they need to punch the other person. So, before we end this presentation, I actually have a bit of a shameless promotion that I want to talk to you guys about. Tomorrow, 10:30 a.m., not p.m., I'm sorry, 10:30 a.m., we'll be holding a live stream where we'll be announcing a lot more details regarding this game title, such as other playable characters. You might have seen Goku or Piccolo, Frieza, and Nappa. We have loads more that we want to definitely talk about. Unfortunately, I barely have any time left, so you guys hopefully access this live stream tomorrow. We'll also have Miles Ward joining us as a special guest from Google Cloud Solutions, and he'll be talking a bit more about the technology that was used to make this product work. So, thank you for listening. Keigo will be saying the goodbyes.
Thank you for listening. We hope that we can be a new benchmark in global PvP. Thank you.
So next up we have Nico I'm sorry, that's not the right one. King, next presentation is from King.
Thank you. Hello. My name is Stefan Freyr. I'm the AI research lead at King. And I'm going to tell you about how we were able to increase the speed of playtesting with deep learning from about 7 days to 7 minutes using Google Cloud Platform. Sorry. First of all, so this is where we operate. We're a mobile game, and King is most famous for Candy Crush, of course. And Candy Crush has been able to stay on top for 5 years now, which is pretty unusual in this market. There are many reasons for this, but we think one of the main reasons is that we have been very data-driven from day one. Today, we run hundreds of A/B tests in our games per year, and we do that in an automated framework. And we realize how important it is to have this kind of automated framework where we can have a very fast iteration loop of what we do, and I'll come back to that later. The agenda for the talk is simple. I'll just explain our problem with playtesting and present our solution and how that connects with Google Cloud Platform. Here are a few examples of what we do with within our team, AI R&D team, King. And the problem I'm presenting is the top one, creating convolutional neural network bots for automatic playtesting. First of all, what is Candy Crush? I'm assuming that most of you have played it or understand the gameplay. If you haven't, you just download it. So, game specifics. The game is non-deterministic. There are random elements in the game. It has a large state space, and today we have more than 3,000 unique levels in the game. Every week, we send out 50 new levels to our players. That means that our level designers have to be very fast and very creative to come up with new levels every week. What they have to think about is, for example, they have to think about the looks of the level. It has to look good, symmetry, things like that. There is a strategic element in most of the levels. Here is an example of a level where you have a lot of blockers in the lower part of the board, where there is almost impossible to make any movements or actions, and the strategy for this level is to try to break down to the lower levels as fast as possible. But one of the most important part that level designers have to think about is the balancing of the level. What does that mean? It means that the level cannot be too easy, too trivial, and there is no challenge, no stimulation for the player, and it cannot be too hard, because then there is no feeling of reward. You fail every time. So it's extremely important to get the right balance of difficulty, of finding the just right difficulty for a level. So how do we do that? This is what we used to do. We have level designers think about the level creation. That takes time. All these three elements I mentioned before. And then we send it out for human playtesting. And that took 7 days. So 7 days later, we get a feedback from the playtesters, and they tell us for the new 15 levels, for example, level 3 and 4, they're too easy, level 15 is too difficult. And the only thing we can do after that is tweak these 3 levels and ship the episode with 15 levels. So we have no guarantee for the sort of just right measurement. We only know that we were able to improve, hopefully, levels 3, 4, and 15. We would like to improve this. And that's our problem. And you can see that at least 7 days, probably a little bit more, taking the time of the level designers is taking in just balancing. So how can we improve playtesting? How can we improve the speed of playtesting, accuracy, everything? With the recent breakthrough in AI in games, we thought, OK, maybe we can build a bot that can play like a human, imitate human playing. So this is an interesting AI problem, because everything we've heard so far would suggest that we should build Alpha Candy Zero, the best Candy player ever. But that's not the problem. We want to find an AI bot that can play the game in the most human-like way. So what did we do? We started gathering data. That's always the first step. We tracked data from players. We tracked the state action pair. For every action they could take, we recorded everything in the level, the whole state, and the action taken. this we can feed, we track a bunch of this data from all of our players over some time period. And then we can feed that into a convolutional neural network, which is the usual approach for image recognition. And we can train a supervised policy network based on this. A network that can learn from the input, the state, and predict the most common human move in that position. And what we do when we have this, then we can use this policy network that plays like a human. We can upload that to some cloud and let it play the game, the new content of the game, the new levels, several times to give us estimate of the difficulty of new levels. So can we have a video here? So on the right, we see the bot playing the same level I showed you before. On top left, we see the communication. So the agent playing the level sends the state to a policy network that gives back, OK, I think you should play this move. It's the most human move in the position. And the bottom left, we show the tracking. Actually, now we're tracking the bot instead of the humans as we did. And you can see that the bot is playing quite well in this level. And we tried this level ourselves a few times. And the bot was actually better than some of us in the team. This was very interesting. But normal if we believe that it is learning the actual play. And it was able to solve the level in this. If you go back to the slides. And so this is the framework we had in Google Cloud Platform. And I said I wanted to come back to the setup we had for our A/B test framework, where we learned that it was so important to sort of have a framework that can work fast and reliably and give fast iteration loops. That is exactly the problem we had with our playtesting solution. In this era of AI and machine learning, it's rather easy to come up with interesting ideas to improve your business, improve your processes. But then you're left with something. You have a proof of concept, you have a test environment, but it's not creating real value for the business until it's a production or product, which is scalable and stable and all these things that you need. And we realized that we're a rather small team. We had this test environment where everybody was fighting for resources, different games than Candy Crush. We wanted to test out more. So we had to move it. We moved it to Google Cloud Platform, and it was surprisingly easy and surprisingly fast. So this is the setup we have. I don't have a pointer on this. You can see on the top right, that's the UI for the level designers. Then we have an API service that talks to the Google Cloud Platform, where we have Cloud PubSub and Cloud Data Flow to sort of plan and distribute the work. The game agent lives in Kubernetes, where we can have hundreds of agents playing the game, basically working as hundreds of playtesters. And they communicate with the model serving with the policy network that feeds back the suggested human moves in each position. So that's how we can sort of evaluate the difficulty of new levels with this kind of setup. OK, so what does it mean for our business? Before we had this, and now we have something like this, where the level designers are able to have very fast iteration loops. And as I said before, that is the key to value for business. The value for business is not being able to prove that there is a solution. It's being able to create the solution very fast. So level designers are now able to iterate on their level design And what used to take up to 7 days of playtesting takes now about 7 minutes. And this allows level designers to focus more on innovation and creation and being creative instead of focusing on the balance. They can just test that very quickly. And we're hoping that this will help Candy Crush and our games to stay on top for at least another 5 years. Why do you laugh? Okay. That ends my talk, and I'll hand it over to Casey, who will wrap up the day. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Casey Fahey, and I focus on games developer marketing at Google Play. We want to say a quick thank you so much for coming out to the Developer Day today. And we hope you walk away with excitement about some of the announcements we've made and lots of tips and actionable takeaways that you can go continue to build the amazing games that you guys do. Seriously, they keep us so busy, and it's so fun that this is our job to play your games. 2 quick pieces of information up on the screen here. If you don't mind, we've built a mobile-friendly, very short survey that should take no more than 2 minutes of your time. And we literally go through every piece of feedback. So this is what helps us build the better content each year after year. So either hop on their phones or jot it down, but goo.gl/GDC 2018. And secondly, later in the week, Wednesday through Friday, stop by Moscone South at the Google booth, where you can hear more Google talks, see product demos, and any questions you may have come up with today, there's an Ask the Experts desk. So that's it for today, and have a great GDC. Thank you.